So Diddy has been acquitted on three charges and, of course, found guilty on two others. And I've been sitting here thinking about how I want to discuss this case. There are other places to get legal analysis, and obviously, we take a look at things from a lens of reviewing culture, but taking a look at it from a perspective of men's mind state and how we relate and what lessons we can take and learn from anything. So, first, let's just say on the RICO charges, that was always a ridiculous overreach by the government. It's not the government's job to try to fish for things to convict people of, but rather to charge them according to what they've actually done, if anything wrong. And so it's no surprise that that charge didn't make it. Okay, I believe there were probably one or two holdouts who wanted to convict them of it. That's what was the holdup yesterday when they had four verdicts, and this was the one that they didn't have a verdict on. Most of the jurors from the jump probably were like, "That's an overreach," and then there were one or two probably who were trying to go ahead and convict them of that, but ultimately they relented because, they were. That was pretty much the government trying to manufacture something there. So as awful as Diddy is, we're not going to make up stuff. We're not going to be for the government being able to make up stuff to come after people. None of us want that because that's a danger to us all. So then what we have is a situation where we're looking at the two prostitution by transportation, by transporting, and then I forget what the other two charges were that he was acquitted of. They had more to do with sex trafficking in specific. So those were the other two charges that he was acquitted of. And to make the case on sex trafficking, you would have had to make the case that he forced or coerced the women to participate in those freak offs. Well, the problem there is that it was shown clearly that these women had agency. That Casey was going and doing sex offs without Diddy and texting him and telling him and contacting him to say, "Hey, how can I go get involved in one? What's the hotel where I can go? Where are the guys where I can go do one of these?" And doing it to such a degree, this is incredible, to where she was giving so much oil to these guys, to where she was uh, developing sores in her mouth. Like, I've never even heard of this. How you have to, you can get dry. A woman can get dry friction burns. That's why they have to be lubed. And if they dry up down there because you guys are going at it for so long, that's where you have KY, and you need to use some lube to keep from getting dry friction burns. How do you get friction burns in your mouth that automatically produces moisture continuously? How long and how many dongs are you on to cause that to happen? And the other thing I wonder is, she was still going back to Sean even after their relationship was over. While she was dating her now current husband, she was still going back to Diddy and having sex with him, cheating on her husband, sending messages, lying. And what I wonder is, did he know about this before the case came up and before this was going to trial, and she knew she was going to be asked about this when she got to trial, because the prosecution lawyers would have gone over all of these things in trial prep with her in testimony in preparation for testimony. So she would have known that this was going to come out by the time she gets to trial. Did she then go and tell him right before then? Did he know before he married her? Did he know what kind of woman he was marrying? And this is the kind of L's that men can take. Now, first of all, let's get back to Combs. Now, we know that we know what he's been about, right? Uh, he is known as an abuser, right? He abuses his rap artists. Almost all of his rap artists ended up broke. He rips everybody off. We saw the kind of power trips he goes on, going back to the band, making those kids walk across the bridge. That had nothing to do with anything other than him tripping on power. How he would, once he formulated Danity Kane and the male group, I forget their name, Day 26 or whatever they were, how he would just dismiss people from the groups willy nilly offhand. If you didn't kiss his butt, he would just dismiss you from the group. I remember there was somebody in the group, Chopper City, was talking about how he told another member of the group. I can't remember the other guy's name. He was kind of the shorter, uh, more diminutive guy, but he was a true thug. I forget his name. And he told that dude that he was going to kill him, and that dude was about to go for Diddy's neck, but Diddy has protection. You see, here's the thing about it all. Combs is not a G. In that short that I did earlier, I said Puff Daddy has now been convicted as a pimp daddy like his father before him. So Puff is from Mount Vernon, which is like north. I think it's north of New York City, on Long Island. You got Brooklyn at the bottom of Long Island, then Queens, and then after that you have more cities on Long Island, but they're not part of New York City. And I think Mount Vernon is up that way. That's where Heavy D is from. I think De La Soul is from there. Maybe Rakim he's from somewhere on Long Island, up north of Queens. So there's a number of hip hop legends and icons and major movers have come from up that way. And his dad was an actual pimp, right? Like in the streets. A substantial pimp back in his day. But I don't think his dad ever stuck around for him and his mom's, right? You know, he's a player on the move, Rolling Stone kind of dude. And so I don't think he ever got the development, the manhood development and love and validation as a young man from his father, any of that kind of stuff. And he wasn't a street dude. He came up. No, he was at Howard University in D.C. He started doing parties and stuff. He was starting to make a way for himself, make a name for himself. He was throwing these major parties. He got that going. He was a dancer. Andre Harrell brought him on to Uptown Records. I think Andre Harrell might be from Mount Vernon. I'm not sure. But maybe not. I don't know. I don't know exactly where Andre. I'm thinking maybe Queens. Actually, I think he's actually from Queens, but he's from somewhere on Long Island. He brought Puffy in there to do A&R. Then we could see Puffy in the Father MC video with Jodeci back in like 1990, before Jodeci even came out. They sung the background on the Father MC video. Treat them like they want to be treated, and Puffy and the other dude are dancing in the background, and all that kind of stuff. And then he was basically AR, brought up Jodeci. He was Mary J. Blige's manager. She was signed to, was she signed to Uptown? Yeah, because Andre Harrell basically went out to Yonkers, which is also north of New York, but that's north of the Bronx. I've been up there once, yes. But anyway, so I think all of this just goes to his psychology as a man. So in order to, he always, I think, wanted to live up to being what his dad was. And part of that, I think, was to get the validation in his mind as a man. So he had to acquire money through business to then acquire his thug status and his pimp status. So now he wants to be a pimp like his dad, but he does it by throwing around money to have real thugs around him do the heavy lifting and be able to intimidate people. You see, the only people he beat up was broads. He's got he's a 5'11", 6 foot, 200-pound dude. He didn't get built up like that until later in life when he was in his 20s. He was skinny, scrawny dude. He got built up over the years after he was rich, and then he beats up little broads. Same thing like with Dr. Dre. Only thing he ever did was beat Michelle A. and beat that reporter. That's the only stripes he has, is beating up broads and driving drunk. There's certain kinds of guys. This is the kind of guy they are. They don't step to any dudes. They get in a position of power. They hang around the thugs from the neighborhood. They let those guys. He had to have Sean bust his gun for him and let Sean take the fall. And instead of keeping quiet, he testified and messed Sean up, all that kind of stuff. Doesn't follow any code, but he gets, everybody in the industry follows behind him because he became the black gatekeeper in the community. He's kind of the gatekeeper He's what Quincy Jones was in his generation. If you know about Quincy Jones, if you know about the Boule, if you know about the guys who are the gatekeepers for the back door with other men, that's Diddy, right? He is the guy. So when you see all the other rappers, you would wonder, like in the '90s, why are these true hip hop heads kicking it with Diddy? Like he was messing up the game. He doing shiny suit rapping. He's really destroying the culture. And then I would see all these guys. I'm like, why are they messing with him? Like he's corny, but because he had the money and he was the gatekeeper, and you got to go through the rituals. You got to go through the rituals to be accepted in the entertainment business, and he was the gatekeeper for black entertainment, and particularly the hip hop R&B music sector of that. Uh, but I think the lessons we can take from this, most of us aren't going to play in this kind of arena where we're going to be a part of this. But the lessons that most of us men can take from this is that when you acquire status as you move through this life, and as you move through as you move through things and kind of make your way, and maybe you in on your own level, um, business wise, you start a small business and you acquire some level of sustaining yourself, substantiating yourself in society. You know, it could be if you're coming up from nothing and now you're making $80,000 a year, you're making 150,000, 200,000, whatever the case may be. Uh, it doesn't have to be in the arena of making millions. You could still fall into traps where you begin to gain position. You begin to move up in whatever industry that you work in. Maybe you become the top dog, or in the plant that you work in. You become the foreman. You become the supervisor. You move into management, directorship. Maybe you're a mover shaker and you run a small business, doing lawn service. You got people working for you. You become an electrician. You become a master electrician, one of those sorts of things, and you're kind of in some sort of position of power where you're over other people. If you have the wrong mind state to begin with, what you'll do is allow that to dictate to you a desire to uh, from executing authority to exercising abuse of power. And what you do in going that route is, in the end, you end up wrecking yourself. You're trying to wreck other people. You're trying to feel better about yourself and gain validation through the fact that you can cause other people pain, that you can take away people's livelihood. That's what you kind of get with Musk and Donald Trump. That's why they the way they are. We can look at some factors about them and their inadequacies as men, and why they operate that way and get off on the glee out of being the glee out of causing people harm and hurt. They say with Trump in particular that in this his whole sphere, that the cruelty is the point. And Combs is the exact same kind of person. Uh, Kind of sociopathic personalities, they get off on the cruelty. The cruelty is the point, right? And but what that does is then that power to cause people pain, to take away people's jobs, to be able to boss people around, to humiliate other people, to diminish other people, to take sex from them. For them, that is that validates something inside of them. That the fact that I get to dominate another man. This is why they do the backdoor thing with other men when they're naturally heterosexual. The whole ritual of getting into uh, taking another man's manhood is they can feel power from being able to take that away from another man. That it's the domination. So the same kind of the way you get power from forcing a woman, that's part of the arousal of why men who rape heterosexually rape in the first place is about the power, right? The sexual arousal comes from the power. Um, Even more so to then dominate another man in this way and to take away his dignity and manhood is a external validation that they get. Learn not to need external validation. That your validation comes internally and intrinsically from And then the way you can demonstrate and fulfill that validation is by being able to demonstrate competence, by being able to grow and increase, by being able to add value to your community, not take away value from other people to make yourself feel better. To try to build yourself up by being on top of people and dominating people, you learn to be a servant leader. And by having the capacity and the capability to bring value to other people, to your family, and then to your greater community, that's where you'll get the validation in the competence you bring and the capacity and the capabilities you bring. So we want to take lessons from Sean Combs to not be like him. He wanted to try to be like his dad, but he couldn't go out in the street and be like his dad, right? He couldn't be that man. He wasn't built for that. He was scary. He was the dude in the house working on his dance moves that he would later put on. And so he couldn't get out there and get it that way. But he waited till he got rich through more legitimate means. Then once he got rich through legitimate means, then he wanted to be a thug and a pimp on the backside by paying his way into being hardcore. He wanted to buy his stripes, right? It's like Drayster said on Real Compton City G's when he was dissing Snoop and Dr. Dre, told Dr. Dre, you started trying to bang around the time of the peace treaty. Same thing Puffy did. He wants to bang after he's rich. Those people, you do that. You do the street stuff with the hopes to make some money to get out the hood. Then these cats are the kind of cats that get out the hood, make money and get out the hood, and then try to go back to the hood through the back door by paying others. So whether he should have been convicted of the two sex trafficking charges, those are spurious because the women seem to choose to be involved. Other than the fact, I would say, they claimed at the time that the video that we saw when he beat Cassie by the elevator door. First of all, there should have been charges on. This is the problem. He wasn't charged for assaulting her. Apparently, the statute of limitations ran out. He wasn't charged for kidnapping her, which I think that you have a case for that before you have a case for RICO. And I don't know if the statute of limitations ran out on that, but that wasn't what was charged. So he can't be convicted for what he wasn't charged for. And then you can't try to say, well, because he's a bad person, let's convict him for some other stuff that he didn't actually do. The only thing is, if that incident was during one of the sex offs and she decided that she didn't want to do them anymore at any time, and he forced her to continue. I also heard that there was some testimony. I didn't hear the testimony, but I heard someone talking about testimony that was given where she says, where one of the other men says he heard Diddy beating Cassie behind the door and telling her to go back out there and do it with him. If that's the case, even if she chose to participate and then chose to stop, and he forced her after she chose to stop, then at that point, I think those are rape charges and maybe even sex trafficking that he should have been convicted for. So if you have any instance where he forced her to continue, even if she initially was willing, then I think that's where they maybe should have gotten him. But part of the problem is just like with the O.J. Simpson trial, where you try to overcharge or you try to pile on the evidence with fake evidence to try to solidify the real evidence. When you do that, you turn the juries off when they see you doing all that overreaching. And I think that's part of the problem here. But for us as men, let's resolve to not follow in the footsteps of when you get some power, when you start to move up in life. Don't take that opportunity to take advantage of people. Gain your validation in your status by being of service to people and bringing value to your employer, to your family, to your community. We're going to get out of here on this one, Yobachi 2007. I'm out. Peace. Like, subscribe, and notification bell before we go. All right, thank you.